Over the years, human activity has been the main contributor of climate change, and people have been trying to find solutions to combat this phenomenon, which many of the ordinary citizens claim is just a scientific phenomenon, but are unaware of the fact that it actually affects both you and me and the person next to you and generations that are to come. The show is still Planet B, and the name is Marvelous Tinembo Chibagidi. As we're still in the majestic and very beautiful city of Mutare in Manicaland, I'm joined with a very vibrant and youthful panel today, and we'll be discussing how we can use technology to combat climate change or control climate change. However, many governments globally have been under pressure by society and the civic society to ensure that they're making plans to make sure that climate change is at least reduced for the future generations to enjoy the world in a better way. So I'm going to start with, I don't know who of the panel is going to want to start this conversation and enlighten us on what they understand by the term climate change.
So to my understanding, climate change is a phenomenon or a long-term effect of the difference of our weather patterns due to the human activities as well as other natural activities. But as we are now discussing, mostly we're now talking of the human activities that are causing those shifts in our weather patterns. That's what I understand.
All right, thank you very much. So you see why I had you breaking the ice. So Shinke has mentioned that it's the change in weather patterns and also the change in extreme temperatures, which is caused by either human activities or the natural factors. But you know, like since the start of the 19th century, human activities have been the main driving force of climate change. And I'm going to go to Ropa. There are many things that people are doing to ensure that we combat climate change. There are hashtags everywhere. You know, the keyboard warriors were tweeting "Go Green," sustainability, and everything. But I'm sure the fraternity of technology, or the idea of technology being used to combat climate change, hasn't really been explored in our country, or is rather being explored at a very slow pace. So how do you think that we can use technology, as Zimbabweans, we can use technology to combat climate change?
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. I think as Zimbabweans we can use technology to combat climate change by social engagement of the people. I think when it comes to things like climate change, they're being caused by the people and they affect the people. So I think when we come up with those technical solutions to solve it, we should have public engagement with the people, make them understand. It shouldn't be more like an oratory that's just coming to the people like, oh, do this, go green. They need to understand. We need to decipher how going green is actually going to help them in their day-to-day lives, and how it's actually going to combat the certain percentage, be it small or whatever. It actually goes a long way into aiding the combatment of climate change. So I think we can actually use social media, for example, and help people engage in activities that make them understand more of the effects, the impacts of climate change on our environment, on their day-to-day lives, and we can also create awareness like for sustainable development, so that they understand that what we are doing, the climate change is affecting us, but then in years to come it's going to be worse if we do not do something about it. So climate, really, the environment is our children's future. It's like heritage, so we need to take care of it. So I think technology goes a long way, because it's like the in thing now. Everything is tech. People communicate through tech. So instrumenting technology is what we can actually use to combat it.
Okay, so you know what, I love how she went to something that's very simple, which is social media. I'm sure when we talk about technology and climate change, trying to put the relationship between the two, someone would think of something that's very cryptic, something that involves programming, something that involves software, something that involves invention, and all of that. Like talk about your solar, talk about. But I love how she mentioned social media and understanding that everyone is on social media, one way or the other. Because if I'm on social media and I get to, they are doing a program and then they're like hashtag go green in Manicaland, that way I can tell my grandmother that you know what, these are the ways that we can actually help combat climate change to ensure that future generations to come don't face the floods, the cyclones, and everything that's happening. So, and I'm going to go to Idai. What else do you think needs to be done so that we can involve technology and be able to combat climate change? She mentioned social media.
Okay, as Shinki and Roper said, I'll just add on to that and say the social media and everything that is involved in making awareness for climate change is very good, but then we have to go back to the grassroots. The simple things that people understand. We have to observe the communities, how they use different technology applications, maybe clean cooking, and maybe warming up themselves, taking care of their livestock. We have to watch what they do and go to the source of the problem. So people have to be educated on how to use the local resources that they have, the natural capital that they have, so that they actually make applications or solutions that can cater to maybe producing innovations or things that they've been using since time immemorial, and create energy and create new alternatives to climate action. So there are a lot of things that we can do, especially I think I have a soft spot for educating the local communities on what to do. So that is what I think we can apply and actually educate those who are not online, because the greater number of people who are affected by these things are not online. As much as yes, we have series and that are growing, and we have netizens, as we call them, but then people at the grassroots, people who are doing smallholder farming, people who are taking care of their small plots somewhere in those remote areas. That's the places that we should go to and conscientize those people how to apply these new alternative sources so that we combat climate action.
So I love how Idai is talking about how is also zeroing in on the idea of educating every citizen, and so that they understand that these innovations can actually help combat climate change, and how these innovations can actually combat climate change. Innovations which can be used to solve climate change are pretty varied, and also I'm sure they work depending on the country, depending on the climate of that particular place. What could work for the Russian climate will probably not work for the Zimbabwean climate, but I'm sure some of those things can actually be used universally, but some of them have to be climate friendly and contextual. This can involve like solar thermal, the wind farms, and all of that. So maybe I'm going to come to you, and then maybe you can tell us what some of these innovations or some of this the technology aspect of it, what also can we then do, or what else can be done within the Zim context, be it as we're talking about changing our energy uses. Are we going to invent like energy saving stoves here, so that people don't cut as much firewood, so that way we're not emitting so many we're not emitting carbon gases into the atmosphere? What do you think can be done to ensure that we're combating climate change, but in a technical manner?
I loved what Idai said when he spoke. You know what? It's funny that us Zimbabweans, we don't term our indigenous way of doing things technology. But in natural facts, that's technology.
Okay.
That's tech. It's just that because of the westernization that is happening, we tend to feel inferior.
The technology is gadgets.
Technology, it has only to be gadgets. It has to be foreign. But I kind of resonate to what Idai said, to say, when we talk of climate change, I think the most important thing, like he said, education. And by that, I would want to add more and say, we really need to break down, by making complex issues very simple. Very complex issues very simple. But how can we do it? You know, as he was talking, I was just thinking of something. How can we educate people who are in Nyanga, Juanita, Mabira, and all that? We can have the beer for climate change. People can be dancing. People can do the temple pros, because that's what our local people understand. The issue there, what we want to push for, we want to have a situation whereby our people identify problems and come up with solutions that themselves they can attend to the problem that they are facing. We don't want a blanket approach.
Okay.
Just now I watched a documentary that you watched on the issue that is happening in Brazil, that the water has been contaminated. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be weird if we were going to take the solution the solution that the EMA is trying to work on and try and transfer it to the entire community? Will it work? No, it won't work. So the issue there, I kind of feel like, in as much as we talk about tech, but our people really need to also understand that our ways of doing things, they are not that bad. All we need to complement the indigenous way of doing things and the tech. That's what I think.
Okay, he mentioned how we need to complement our already, the ideas or the ways of living, the ways of combating climate change that we already have. But I think that I personally think that in a fast-changing world globally, like you mentioned, I love you mentioned how we can simply go to people and find ways of packaging it, be it even the education, packaging it in a way that they'll understand. Like I mentioned when you started, that what could work for Russia might not actually work might not actually work for Zimbabwe. So I'm gonna go back to Shingi. And you've broken the ice, so you're warm now. you broke it already, so you're warm now. So what do you think that he mentioned that we need to add on to what's they create, because I'm sure where people were putting like 10 dogs in a fire to warm themselves and everything, maybe people are using bawuda and everything. Not saying that it's the sustainable way of things, but then and I'm sure in our heads we're thinking it's a better option, so that because now we don't have to be cutting down the whole forest to keep warm or to cook. So what do you think that we can add on to what we're doing already, or our practices? What do you think? Now we've got a stove, maybe with 2 logs to cook and everything. What do you think needs to be done on that particular aspect, whereby we're trying to contextualize what we already have, but now we're trying to make it sustainable?
Okay, making it sustainable, I like the fact that he said earlier on, when he said we can engage people when they are doing those timbos, those beers and stuff. There's a phrase that says, hook them with what they love. And we are supposed to engage the communities, knowing what they love to do. We can engage in sporting activities. We spread the information about climate change whilst we're doing sport. We can do poetry. We gather those people who are into art and pass on the message of climate change with what they love to do. Because it's not really easy for someone just to come to them and just preach the word or preach the gospel of climate change when it's something new to them or something that they really do not pay attention to. So if firstly we hook them with what they love, I think that way we will spread our message effectively. As well as we are supposed now to adopt to the ways of our world is changing, and we are using different equipment to do our things. We are supposed to adopt. We are now talking of solar, using solar for solar equipment. We can engage into that and really adopt into it. Even we are now, as we're talking of using biogas, we are producing biogas from waste, isn't it? So that waste that we have from our kitchen, or that waste we have from animal manure, we can then reuse it to produce biogas. So we are supposed to find common ground of what we can use, or what others are doing, that we can engage locally to help us and live a sustainable life.
Okay. Tindai, so I'm just going to let you go on continue to take on from where Mr. Ingi had started, because you mentioned like how we're now using other alternatives for solar or biogas. But do you think that as Zimbabweans, we've actually grasped the concept of combating like carbon emissions? You know, have we grasped that concept, and are we really, be it the authorities or even as individuals, as the youth, have we really grasped the concept, and are we working on ensuring that we're trying to combat climate change? Because you mentioned solar. I mean, I know person okay fine. Why do I know of people who have solar despite the fact that where they are has electricity. You get it, but then they opt for solar. But then there are some people who tell you, why should I go for biogas when I can just simply turn on the system? You get it. So do you think as Zimbabweans to put forward that technology of solar, of like wind fields, you know, to ensure that we are combating climate change and we're doing better than emitting waste? You mentioned biogas. We're actually reusing the waste, but in most cases, I personally feel we're not there yet. But do you think that as Zimbabweans, we're trying to grasp the technology aspect of things?
In my view, I think yes, we have taken it up mainly due to the education that people receive from schools. People are now starting to get away, to become aware of those things. But then I go back to the point where I say the person who's in the remote areas may not really know. And there were things that they were doing, like for example, what would you think is a more sustainable home? A clay-built house, a hut in Umusha, and a house which is bricks and all that material that is being used today. Those topics like net zero climate, net zero emissions, these things are so far-fetched for the simple person. But then there are things that we did already that actually helped in that aspect. So we now talk about marrying the new technology with the old technology so that we come up with applications that are appealing to people. If it's a case of appealing to people, I think we can always come up with a solution. Because since, I don't know, people have been building, people have been in construction, people have been using charcoal, have been using wood, have been maybe the solar things are now the new technologies that have been developed. But I think people can still adopt these technologies if they are well taught on how to use them. It's just a situation where these technologies, like in the first world countries, they are not decentralized. They're capitalized in Africa. And usually, foreign people come with solutions for us. Maybe through donor funding and things like that. So it's not easy for someone. If you, there's a saying that if you want someone to develop, you give them the means so that they keep developing, but you just don't give them the product. Because
so teach me how to fish, don't give me the fish.
Yes.
Okay.
We should teach people how to fish, and when people learn how to fish, they will know what to do. Because we're trying to create a system. We're trying to change the thinking, like he was saying. From the things they love doing, like Shinki was saying, we have to start from there. Because if we just bring a product and it's out of touch with the local community, they won't know how to use it. And it will be something so foreign, probably so expensive, because solar in itself is not really that affordable to some people. So we have to find solutions that are easily accessible to people, that are affordable, then that are locally produced.
Okay. So I think we're all zeroing in and agreeing that whatever solutions that we'll be out to bring, the technology simply has to be contextual, and it simply has to be something that's Zim-friendly, either way. I don't know if any of my panelists are familiar with artificial intelligence when it comes to climate change. Is there anyone who would want to maybe elaborate or shed a bit of light on using artificial intelligence to combat climate change?
From what I hear, it's when we use technology, mainly in the data sphere, where we collect data and machine learning, like programs that learn our habits, our characters, and over time, that data is used to analyze if we are the way we are living is making an impact on the environment or not. And we can use that data to produce maybe solutions that we were talking about to combat climate technology. So artificial intelligence, I don't know if anyone is using it in Zimbabwe because I hear that it's a very expensive component. But then it's something that we can apply in computer programs. Yeah, I'm sure we have computer programmers in Zimbabwe and data analysts in Zimbabwe, people who deal with these things, and they can actually come in contact with people like us who, like Shinti, is in the environmental space, and Roba and Farai, who know a bit about technology when it comes to environmental issues. So we can collaborate with each other and come up with ideas as a whole. If they were just going to produce a program which learns people's behavioral patterns, but not knowing the actual concept that we want to address, maybe we can come up. That's where we have that problem where the technology has a disconnect with the people.
Yes.
So we have to have that such technology which learns the people's behavioral patterns, but then it is connected to the people, and people can actually access that technology.
And when you mentioned how we actually have programmers within our country, we can actually help and work with AI. I remember, okay, it's not climate change related, but you know how the radiology machines at Parrenyatwa were did, and they actually had to call engineers from South Africa, and there was during the COVID era. So imagine that people had cancer and needed radiology treatment, but then people, but then they can't travel. Remember, there's COVID-19. Those were the days when people couldn't travel. So people had to you had to be sick, even if you had the money. You had to have your money, but you couldn't get treatment because the engineer had to fly from Joburg to Zimbabwe, to come fix the machines. So maybe there's another aspect that we need to tackle, whereby we actually educate, empower our own people so that once they learn about these technologies, because I'm sure if, let's say, you for a while on this panel actually have a know-how of AI and every other aspect of this thing, that means he's got maybe 3 or 4 more people that he's going to share the knowledge to. The ferry is going to have like 4 or 6 more people that's the same. So it's like a chain of knowledge being passed down to the next person. So I think it's something else that we also need to focus on, that maybe better so government or better it's collaboration, you get it, whereby we have people coming and people are being trained, because it's if we talk about AI, I'm sure it's very, like you mentioned, it's capital intensive. We're going to need that data, but either way it works, because this AI also focuses on managing carbon emission. You get it? So there's going to be someone who's going to be on the data the whole time. You're going to have to be paying me to be doing all of things, but I also need to understand it, right? Before paying me, I need to understand it. So Robert, what have you been doing as a young person in Zimbabwe, or what maybe activities have you been engaging in to ensure that we also combat climate change, or at least you raise awareness so that people understand climate change?
Okay, as I always say, when it comes to climate change, it's caused by the people, and the benefits are for the people. The sustainability is for the people. So you can never mention climate change without mentioning the people. So some of the things that I've been doing is conscientizing people on the fundamentals of environmental conservation. Because when we understand the value of our environment, we can tackle things like climate change. Let's talk about waste disposal. There's small things that we can actually do before going on to implement things, technique and stuff like that. We can teach people simple basic habits like not throwing litter. You just can't litter. I really don't understand how a person can just walk and say, yes, you paper, I'm dropping you here. I don't understand.
Zimbabwean, I mean.
Exactly. So, when we come up with solutions, they need to be closer to home. My siblings, I tell them, if you can't see a bin, keep your paper in your bag.
My father literally stops the car, tells you to go get your paper, and
really?
then you get back.
I like that.
Simple.
Yes, Exactly. And sometimes when I do that, or when I tell a person, when I reprimand a person for throwing a paper, some people ask me, but if exactly. So when we teach each other, like, wait, there are 10 papers here, but if each person was going to keep their paper in the bag, there wasn't going to be any paper here, you understand? So before I engage in pressure groups with my peers, it starts with you. Change starts inward. Good habits, not throwing litter everywhere, like I said. And then I've also been working with other pressure groups. I'll mention Ignited organization. It's an organization for young people who are just passionate about life, the environment, and everything like that. They're just pursuing their purposes. And pressure groups actually help. Because I have these values that I tell myself and my siblings, right? So when we meet in a setup like this, and I tell people about these habits, people will be like, you know what, it actually makes sense. And the group of 10 people going to their families with maybe 5 people, and then that's like 50 people. And then it becomes like a network where people are learning the basic habits before we move on to like the big things. And the other thing that I've also been doing, because I feel like it has to be in stages in regard to climate change, is actually making our voices be heard on a legislative platform. You understand?
Very true.
Exactly. On a legislative platform, we also, young people, we're so passionate, we've got the drive, we've got the energy. So let's go forth with our ideas, with our plans. Exactly. Let's engage in policy formulation, you understand? The older people who are up there, probably, climate change matters, but
maybe they think we're just going to die soon. But
exactly, and people running businesses, they're like, focus on picking papers. I got a business to run. You understand? And this affects us. It affects our families, our children, generations to come. We understand it better because we're the ones being most affected by it. Most of our parents, their generation, and everything was fine. Climate then was better. Now we're living in the industrial revolution era. You understand? There's a lot going on. We're inhaling a lot of things. You understand? So we also need to be involved in policy formulations. Like, wait, you were saying this about the environment. We are being affected in such and such a way. And
I'm not sure if when Robert was mentioning nearly certain things, she was talking about shisha or something. But anyway, moving on to Fari. Moving on to Fari, we just want just let us know what you've been doing to ensure that to aid or contribute to this cause of fighting climate change, in your area of expertise and in your community and everything. What have you been doing, and maybe some of the challenges that you're actually facing in doing that?
Lovely. I will tell you this. I strongly feel that in terms of research, in terms of new technology, we are doing exceptionally well.
Okay.
We are doing exceptionally well.
Okay.
Because we now have programs where young people are being taken to other countries to let them know about this climate change. Right? I know for certain that in September, applicants were applying now to attend climate symposium, so to say, in Tunisia.
Okay.
And I know you guys, I hope you guys have applied. Please. But anyway, the point I'm making is, research, professors, organizations are doing exceptional. But I kind of feel the missing link is where we talk about communication.
Okay.
That's where the missing link is. In terms of research, we're doing so well. I think the missing link is communication. And by communication, what do we mean? I think our people, we need to understand that Zimbabwe is a third world country. So in as much as the world is evolving, and I must say, the only thing that is constant in this world is change.
True.
I like what Robert said, when our parents left them, we never had this, change in the rainfall patterns. Our parents knew that at August, we tilled the land, 1 October, then 15, they knew it was it was predetermined. They knew that.
So excuse me, say, when were you born? I'm like,
our parents knew it was predetermined.
Yeah.
But guys, let me tell you something. Change is the only constant thing that is happening in our world. Other things, that's the only constant thing that's changed. And I feel that we as young people have a role to play, like what Shoko was saying. And I happen to be one of those young people. I'm also in JCI. I don't know if you know JCI. A group of young people who are doing, who do exceptional way in trying to push for change in different areas of life. But my passion lies specifically in film and theater.
Okay.
I strongly feel, many of you, if I was to ask you, which one is your favorite soapy, oh my goodness, or series? We'll spend the whole day talking about those things. You tell me suits, what. But I feel that we as our generation, because of this technology that we're talking about, film and theater will be the new vehicles which we can use to educate and engage this.
So have you been using, with your passion for film and arts, have you been using that and your different platforms to actually engage and spread the message and educate people when it comes to climate change?
Very true, very true. I was so fortunate enough to be one of the champions to travel to Madagascar to talk about climate change from the visit. I went to Madagascar knowing, and we were talking about climate change. The idea there was trying to train about young people, talking to young people about climate change. So I'm still pushing that agenda, where we need to educate our people about climate change. The issue has to be climate change, but the issue is how do you do it? That's the issue.
Okay, well then, it's okay. He just had to put it in there that he traveled to Madrid.
That's just one of the places.
Yes, it's okay. We had you. We got you. And then now to you, Shingi. What have you been doing in your own sphere of influence, and what maybe campaigns or projects, technical or not, that have you been doing to combat and address climate change, and what have been the challenges? Please don't go on that ferry, please.
Oh, please.
Don't go on that ferry.
I will try to be short and precise.
Okay.
So my upbringing, Christian values. And Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it.
Amen.
Your parents are proud of you.
So what I'm trying to drive is, we've been working with students from primary schools and high schools, trying to teach them the effects of climate change, the impacts of climate change, the causes, and what can be the solutions. And mainly we're doing the tree plantation, teaching them that these trees are what carbon sinks, and they are supposed to, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is one mostly contributing to climate change, right? So if we plant as many trees as we can, we are then able to sink as many carbon dioxide into the trees, and then we preserve our atmosphere. So as we are now trying to as well include the technology side of climate change to these kids. So we are working on websites and on applications that will be able to teach these students on what really climate change is, because some of them don't even know. So we are trying to package the information in as simple way as possible, so that from the grassroots everyone will understand and everyone will know what they can do, so that we are able to combat this issue of climate change.
Thank you. Oh, it was really short and precise.
I love that.
Tendai, now we go on to Tendai. What have you been doing to address climate change, and also what have been some of the challenges that you have been facing?
Okay, like Shiki, I'll just try to make it short. But basically what we have been doing, we are a startup, a renewable energy startup that's focusing on biomass utilization.
Sorry, please, you need to say that again, please. For me and my other relatives, please say that again.
Gender.
Yes, please, you need to say it again.
Okay, biomass utilization basically is when we focus on natural waste, natural products like.
Okay, so it's biomass utilization.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that.
So we're developing biomass utilization solutions to enable us to focus on mainly waste to energy. So we're looking at the production by sawmills in Idai. Sawmills produce sawdust, sawmills produce wood chip waste, and we also have farms that are producing crop residue and things like that, like mashaga.
Okay.
So we are taking those things and we're developing energy solutions. But mainly the main product that we have that we're focusing on right now is charcoal. So we're producing charcoal from sawdust, from wood chips. We
Also, so that means we don't necessarily have to go and cut these trees
we
again.
don't necessarily
Oh,
have
okay.
to go and cut down trees, and so we're focusing on areas, people like smallholder farmers who are conscientized through generational farming, and for you to cure tobacco the right way, you have to go and cut down trees. But then they're going to cut down trees that are indigenous, and it takes a long time to regenerate those forests. Goes down to what Shinki was saying. When we cut down these trees, our climate is being affected because we no longer have trees that can actually extract the gases that are being emitted.
Yes.
So instead of the sustainable forests that are there, we have people that are focusing on our indigenous forests. So we are trying to educate and help those people to get an alternative, especially those who cure tobacco, those who do livestock production, mainly chick producers, piggery producers. So this charcoal can also be used for clean cooking. We are developing a stove right now which can be used in homes so that they can actually apply this charcoal. So some value addition to what we're doing. And basically that's what we are doing. You can check us out on Pure Flip Tech Zimbabwe on our social media.
All right. So there you have it, our dear audience. You know what, like I said, you know, I just have, like how majestic this place is, this city is, and an amazing and marvelous panel today. And you know what, it pays to have an adjective for a name, you know. And I say marvelous day, marvelous city, marvelous panel,
Marvelous me.
marvelous me, you know. So we had, just in case you thought it was, I know there's so many of our audience who think that climate change is simply a scientific phenomenon which does not affect them in any way, and maybe some that affects our Western and European or Eastern counterparts, but it's something that affects you, it affects me, and as the youth and the young of Zimbabwe, it's also going to affect our future generations, our children and our children's children. So you've had the solutions that are coming from the youth of Zimbabwe, and I hope you're inspired to also go green, to also ensure that in all your activities, you're ensuring sustainability in one way or the other. The program, ladies and gentlemen, is Planet B. The name is Marvelous to name Bagidi. Till we'll meet again, don't miss me too much. I'm going to be back with another episode.